What's going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I am doing outstanding. You can't prove that I was nearly late starting the stream because I was sitting there looking at Final Fantasy Store Shadowbringer DLC stuff, information. You can't prove it, and any insinuation that that is what I was doing will be met with terrible indignation. What's going on, Cosmic Sword? How are you doing today? I am doing outstanding. I hope that you're doing just as well today. You know, it's a lovely day. Thank you for taking a break from Anthem. If you've been playing Anthem, great. If not, you should. A lot of reviewers are saying it's bad. I like it. Maybe that'll change. But you know, eventually, I actually really enjoy it. Well, not eventually. I actually really enjoy it. It's super good, super fluid. Loading zones are a little bit long, but you know, what are you gonna do? How are you doing though there, Cosmic? Ooh. What's that? Oh, nice. So, a couple new things today. We got some great new fanfictions we got going on today. We got a bunch of them from the Reddit. So if you came from the subreddit fanfiction, welcome to the stream. Thank you for stopping by. So yeah, we've got Amber Dance by our very own Gildy. We've got Galactic Threat by you, Cosmic Sword. I'm looking forward to that one. I'm a huge Alien and Predator fan, so when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh. Then we've got one called Hiding Bruises from the Lab Rats fan fiction. Then we've got a Star Wars fan fiction, a Attack on Titan, and an Ice Age one. I'm looking forward to them. I posted not too long ago, earlier this week, about doing some fan fictions, and got a lot of good feedback from you all. And Cosmic, I think you were one of them this week. Hope so. If not, I'm a moron. You should probably ignore me. There we go. With pleasure, Derek. I hope you enjoy my work and progress. That is the Galactic Threat crossover saga. Here's the thing. It's already better than the Alien vs. Predator movies. What's up, Wolf? How are you doing today? And Gildy, what's going on? So we got some new fan fictions this week, but we've also got some brand new emotes that I just got finished up. We got a little black cat, a little GNC, and a little book, because Fanfiction Fridays have been really good. Yay, emos. And all the emos rejoiced. So yeah, I got a book. Wolf tuning in for the night here. I'm chilling by the water on a beach. On a bench. Okay. I was like, what? Oh, nice. Well, I'm glad you're able to tune in there, Wolf. Hey, I really like that emote there, Wolf. The wolf howling at the moon. It absolutely fits your channel aesthetic. Hey, have you got to play Anthem yet? If so, isn't it good? Or has Apex been taking over your life? So yeah, let's see, what else has been going on? We're doing arcade this week. I am actually a huge fan of rhythm games, as it turns out. And I'm actually not terrible. And that's one of the things I'm wanting to get better at. So do I know I haven't played Apex now for days. Oof. It's good. Anthem is really good. Apex is decent. I need to get better at it, but Anthem has been today has been taking over my life. I actually took off work to play Anthem, which is weird because it's an EA game. But yeah, I've not played Anthem yet. Been very busy with studies, writing fanfiction ideas, and jamming to heavy metal tunes. Nice. Are you a Kiss fan, or are you a like Aerosmith and that sort of thing? Because if you like heavy metal, you should probably listen to In This Moment, OTEP. What is the other one I was listening to? Hey, Wolf, what was the one with Cindy Lou Who now? Oh my god, what was her band name? Oh gosh. Cindy Lou Who now. Nightwish. Nice. Emo. No, she's in a band. Taylor Momsenson. OTEP. O-T-E-P. OTEP. First of all, Cindy Lou Who. Pretty Reckless. That's what it is. Pretty Reckless. Nightwish is a good one. I like Nightwish. Lordi is like a Swedish version of Kiss. They go all out on theirs. Like, they've got like giant platform booths. They've got like nightmarish makeup. It's like a movie set on their stage. It looks amazing. Lordi's Finish. Yep. I love their song like Blood Red Sandman, that sort of thing. So good. It's one of those bands that you're like, I haven't heard them in a while. And then you go and listen to them and you're like, still just as good. Still just as good. So yeah, it's been interesting. Great band though. Really, it really is. It really is. Forgot some channels on Discord have a notification that I'm live. I'm like, what? Okay. Let us go ahead and read the first one by Gildy, actually. Let's get the first fanfiction read, and then we'll go back and we'll chat a little bit. So those who don't know, while I am reading, I'm not typically able to answer chat, mostly because I also record this so that if somebody wants to use the audio for something, they can. I offer that as an option. Yeah, Gildy, this is a completely... This is a new piece. This is not a... This is not based on anything. It's actually part of a book you're writing, which is amazing and awesome. And if you haven't checked it out, down below in one of the panels is a link to the actual piece, and I think you should go check it out. But let's get this read, and we'll get this taken care of. Amber Dance by Gildarts Winters. Chapter 1. Guardian. Sound waves vibrated through the air via what could only loosely be called rhythm. They could only come up with two themes for the school prom. Ocean, which had already been done last year, and a pun one of the retarded kids repeated. His staff worker had said it, he just repeated it into a meeting. They had given him all the credit, calling him clever. The Amber Lance, a pun on a well-known fantasy 7-part series, The Amber Dance. Great series, nasty pun. Puns. The slightly crooked nose, sitting below an arctic sapphire gaze, let loose a contemptuous snort. Very slightly. Nobody noticed. Though she had no idea what the hall looked like, that gaze never ceased its movement. She was a student at the School for the Blind. She was also head of student security, which mainly meant a ton of standing about. No, most anybody who saw her was itching for trouble quickly changed their minds when they saw her. She cast a fierce, sweeping presence. She was 7 foot tall, 227 pounds, and so quick it was tough to see her. If a situation required expediency, the locals called gatekeeper. The ever-moving gaze was actually a calculated battle tactic. Total misdirection and overt underestimation. She hoped somebody would be stupid enough to try to surprise her. Say from behind or from the side. She was ready to fight. Any moment. She stood back to the darkly stained oak-paneled wall, arms folded across her stomach, facing ahead. Her dark, honey and wheat hair was plaited in a single, thick braid. She wore a crisp, spotless, and slightly shrunken black t-shirt, which went together with black fatigue pants, a thick leather belt, and black motorcycle boots. She had a thick white scar spanning the distance from the back of her left hand to just slightly above her left elbow. Her arm was damn near split in half by that sword, which rode on her hip. It was encompassed within a supple, black leather sheath. She'd killed the man whom attacked her at the 8 years old. She kept the sword ever since. A spoil of mortal combat. A small, round scar curled around her right elbow. A wine bottle tossed by an outraged crackhead. A month after she'd gotten that first scar, her nose was broken a few months after that, and a tooth chipped by her uncle at 6. She adjusted her powerful farm slightly, smoothing an uncomfortable fold out of her shirt. She leaned forth and tossed her head back, flinging her braid back over her left shoulder. She settled back again, the black leather gloves riding in their place, folded over her silver belt buckle, reeking softly. The entire time she moved, her eyes never stopped moving, not once, and blinked, but rarely. As the dance progressed, she kept a tireless watch. One never knew. That was Amber Dance by Gildarts Winters. It was really good. It was really good. I noticed a couple spelling issues, but you know, I'm not Captain Correct Spelling. I'm quite the opposite even. I'm terrible about spelling. There we go. Get that saved up. There you go. But yeah, it was really good. Love how calm she is, but ready to jump in any direction. Exactly. I mean, it reminds me of a lot of different things. I'm trying, like, almost reminds me of Teal'c from Stargate. It was alright. Yeah, there's a couple spelling errors, some words that I might not have used, but I like it. I like where it's going. I think I've read part of this story. Deadly dangerous, but very placid, like a Louisiana swamp. Nice stuff to listen to already in the next chapter for Predator and Prey. You know, I've actually heard that a lot. That when I'm reading, it's very ASMR, which I kind of like. I like that idea. I'm not like doing that creepy thing where I'm like whispering in your ear, but at the same time, I'm also not like high octane. I'm not a shrieking Fortnite kid. What do you think about her description? What does that tell you about her? So the way I understand it, so 7 foot tall, sure, is a Goliath of a woman, 227 pounds. I like that. I like that it's an odd number. I like that. Also, a piece of dialogue that created for a future fanfiction, a galactic threat saga called Hope for a Dead Race. Nice. Hope for a Dead Race. I like that. Let's see. 7 foot tall, 227 pounds. I like that odd number. It's not 250, not 220. It's an odd in-between number. It makes your brain stop and really think about that number. And so quick it was tough to see if the situation required expediency. I like that one. Ooh, a Mass Effect District 9 crossover? Oh, hell yeah. Cosmic, when you're done with that, I'd love to see it. I'd love to read it here because I love District 9. District 9 is one of the best Neil Blomkamp movies ever. I don't know which one is better though, Chappie or District 9. I'm personally a robotics person, so Chappie might edge out over that one. And Die Antverd, you can't lose when you use them. But District 9 was a very different story to tell, and I really, really liked that. Okay, so single thick braid. That almost reminds me of like as dumb as it sounds, like Katniss Everdeen. Crisp, spotless, and slightly shrunken black t-shirt. Okay. Black fatigue pants and a thick leather belt and black motorcycle boots. Black on black on black on black. And she had a thick white scarf spanning the distance from the back of her left hand to just slightly above her elbow. So I'm kind of imagining it like, are you like going white, or are you going skin white? Because for some reason I was just imagining like almost like a white painted line, almost like she was accentuating it. I don't know why, but yeah, that's what I was imagining. She had a thick white scarf spanning the distance from the back of her hand, left hand just below the elbow. It's back of left hand just above her left elbow. I like it. I like it. A small scar curl around her right elbow. Waxy white. Okay. Like an actual scar. Nose is broken. I like that crooked and chipped tooth. Bro, I don't want to see the lotion bottle in the back. What lotion bottle in the back? I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. But welcome to the stream, Oddcast. The only thing I can think of... Are you talking about this? It's a year of date nights that my wife gave to me for Valentine's Day. I mean, I can move it if it bothers you, but... Yeah, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, date night, lube. I mean, I can see the correlation. How did you mistake that for lube? You know what? I would entirely believe that could be lube. I wonder what you would have changed. Just an idea. I'd probably... Some of the wording, maybe some of the, fixing some of the correct word is some of the punctuation. Yeah, no, some of the punctuation I think could be changed so that it makes different changes, different accentuation. I hate coming into people's houses and seeing their lotion jerkin bottle on the desk. Yeah, I don't have lotion on my desk. I don't use lotion like ever unless I'm at work and sitting directly underneath the heater. Just my thing. I don't like the feeling of I don't like the feeling of the greasy feeling. My wife will put on lotion, like touch my arm and I'm like, it's like the Exxon Valdez broke out. It's supposed to flow, so that helps. Ellipses, commas rather than short, chippy sentences. Yeah. I think maybe I was reading it weirdly. But no, actually it was really good. I think you've got something good going on there. Why is my phone just buzzing endlessly? It's like, excuse me, people, don't you know? Okay, they do know. And that is why they're retweeting, which I should retract my statement. But no, actually, I really like it, Guilty. I think it's going a lot of good places. I can't wait to see for the full book. Whenever it's done. I know I've read a bunch of your stuff on here, and I will continue to read stuff as long as you send it to me. I actually really, really enjoy it. You got a talent. Your overall thoughts? She's ready. Seems like a survivor. Battler, but calm. Exactly. Exactly. I think this is the same character that I've read about. But I think so. Oh, it's Pebble. Okay, yeah, I've read about her, definitely. Let's read Galactic Threat, since you're here there, Cosmic. The, amazing Alien vs. Predator. Oops. Great. Let's get that rolling. And then, we'll talk about that. Galactic Threat, Predator and Prey by Cosmic Sword, an Alien vs. Predator fanfic. Prologue. Two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. Arthur C. Clarke. The Yautja species have always been known for one thing: hunting. These large reptilian humanoids stood at around 7 feet tall on average, generally making them larger than human beings. Of course, the height of the Yautja would vary, and some Yautja stood much taller than the typical predator. There were even shorter Yautja that stood as tall as a typical human. Usually, these Yautja would become the subject of ridicule because of their aforementioned squatter height. Their reptile-like skin could vary in color, from dark-colored green and pale brown to gray, among others. Each Yautja appearance would include a genetic variation that is quite similar to human biological diversity, such as eye color or their skin color, as mentioned before. Instead of having a simple jaw like humans, Yautja mouths consist of crab-like mandibles, and there is also no visible nose, which does not mean that Yautja are without a sense of smell. These mandibles attached to their faces were meant as a means of conveying emotions. To use an example, if the mandibles of the Yautja are splayed open wide, then usually means either anger or surprise. Yautja also have large crests on the top of their head, which may vary in their design as part of their trait of genetic variation, and long, fleshy dreadlocks attached to their skulls. While Yautja generally refer to these appendages as quills, they were given the nickname of dreadlocks by the humans because of their uncanny resemblance to the human haircut that was immensely popular during the Rastafarian movement. Yautja culture was based off a hunting ideology that prides itself on hunting down dangerous life forms for sport. These traditions were often ritualistic, and Yautja would often travel great distances across the galaxy just to claim a hunting prize. Hunting trophies were almost always the skull of said life form, chosen as game by the Yautja hunter. Despite having an ideology about hunting down other life forms as sport and taking their skulls as trophies, Yautja highly valued the concept of honor in their culture. This was because of their strict honor code, followed almost religiously by Yautja hunters during their pursuits. Many guidelines were made for the Yautja hunts because of this honor code, such as the prohibition of slaughtering elders, children, pregnant women, or any other game that cannot defend itself. Slaughtering any and all innocent is also forbidden as well, not just limited to fellow Yautja hunters, but also those who haven't committed any crimes worthy of a death sentence from any sentient species. This limited to those deemed worthy to kill under the code. Yautja also preferred to take their own lives in a form of suicide very similar to that of Japanese seppuku, if their hunt has failed in an effort to preserve their honor. When it came to hunting humans, Yautja hunters only killed criminals, rapists, murderers, etc. Many who tried to fight against Yautja hunters never came back alive, until 1987, when the first human had ever fought against a Yautja and lived to tell the world about his experience with an extraterrestrial jungle hunter. That year, That year, United States mercenary Alan Dutch Schaefer and his team of soldiers were sent into Val Verde to rescue hostages that had been taken prisoner by members of a South American drug cartel. While his team was successful in rescuing the hostages from the enemy base and slaughtering every terrorist in the area, his men were soon being hunted down, one by one, with what seemed like a deadly blast of plasma energy, which was fired from the jungle hunter's plasma caster. It wasn't easy for Alan to figure out what was killing his troops, because the Yautja jungle hunter had used his active camouflage to keep himself cloaked from their notice. When only Alan remained, he used his guerrilla warfare tactics to hide from the jungle hunter and catch him in a makeshift trap he made. The jungle hunter then removed his biomask and activated the self-destruct feature on his wristband in an attempt to kill both Alan Schaefer and himself. Major Alan Schaefer survived the explosion created from the jungle hunter's suicide and lived to tell the tale of how his squad was slaughtered by some mysterious and hideous-looking creature that clearly wasn't from Earth. Nobody believed his story, and many thought he was making up this story to cover up for the alleged murder of his entire squad. The woman his squad saved from the drug cartel, named Anna Gonçalves, had other words to speak, however. She stated that some invisible creature tried to kill Alan's squad, and was successful. Anna then explained that the only reason she didn't end up skinned alive by the alien hunter was because Alan told her to evacuate to a nearby Black Hawk helicopter, which would lead her to safety. Yet, even with Anna's detailed and horrifying descriptions of their encounter with said hunter, they both found to be guilty for this apparent friendly fire incident. Among Alan's squad, and the attempt of framing it on absurd matter wasn't real. Anna eventually committed suicide when the memories of the alien hunter stalking her and Alan's squad in the jungle of Valle Verde. Alan still lived, but remained incarcerated in a mental institution where he refused to deny the existence of extraterrestrial hunters, and how one slaughtered his squad and nearly killed him too, before taking its own life. Many years later, in 2004, however, the company known as Wayland Yutani dispatched a team of archaeologists to the island of Boivete, which was an island 1,000 miles off the coast of Antarctica. This team of archaeologists was sent to the island to investigate the location where satellite signals had picked up an abnormal heat signature on the island. When analyzing the thermal imaging, it was discovered that a mysterious pyramid was buried 2,000 feet below the thick layer of ice. After arriving on the island by helicopter at the abandoned whaling station and drilling through the ice, the team of researchers was finally able to explore the pyramid below this Antarctic island. What they found inside was evidence that humans had been visited by not one, but two alien civilizations in the past. Even more disturbing was that one of these alien species had been directly responsible for the destruction of the Mayan peoples. The evidence was all around them. There was even a giant alien frozen in a state of cryostasis, which was a xenomorph queen. The archaeologists are soon met with some unexpected visitors that interfere with their research operations. Yautja hunters. The Yautja ship arrived, and 3 of these hunters slaughtered all the human presence on the surface of the island. The xenomorph queen awoke and soon began to produce eggs, resulting facehuggers, infecting the humans trapped inside their sacrificial chamber. They soon have xenomorphs spawn from them, which quickly grow and start to wreak havoc among the pyramid. 2 humans, Alexa Woods and Sebastian De Rosa, learned about the truth behind the pyramid and how this was part of a ritual sacrifice carried out by the Yautja every 100 years. Sebastian is then captured by the xenomorphs and is presumably killed by them. When only Alexa one of the Yautja hunters remained, the 2 decided that they must work together to fend off the onslaught of xenomorph drones and the queen. The Yautja hunter saw that this human female was unlike the others, as she fought bravely against the xenomorphs just as well as any other Yautja would. However, The Yautja was then impaled on the blade at the end of the Xenomorph Queen's tail. Alexa managed to fend off the Queen and actually killed it, but not without the help from the Yautja, of course. The two killed the Xenomorph Queen by pushing her off a cliff into the freezing waters of the Antarctic Ocean. What lied for the two's future was soon to unfold. The icy winds of the Antarctic Ocean filled the air around the island of Boyavete as the two individuals stood on the snowy grounds. One was Alexa Woods, the last surviving member of the Weyland-Yutani research team sent to Antarctica to investigate an abnormal heat signature emanating from the island. All of her fellow associates were presumably dead or missing. How she managed to stay alive against the reckless alien threat that infested the now destroyed pyramid was purely a miracle. But in the cold Antarctic weather, without any supplies left, her fate was surely guaranteed to come very soon. The other individual of whom stood upon the snow was not a human being, as he was one of the strange alien hunters that arrived when the Xenomorphs were released. His species was known as the Yautja. Alexa and her now missing partner, Sebastian de Rosa, had uncovered evidence of extraterrestrial life, and now it has been lingering here on planet Earth for a long time. Now, the mysteries about how the ancient civilization of the Mayans disappeared without leaving a trace behind could be solved. But if humanity learned that what these aliens had done to the Mayans thousands of years ago, wouldn't there be peace among their races? Alexa thought that since she and this alien hunter managed to set aside their differences and unite against a common threat, maybe peace could happen. But peace wasn't on either of their minds at the moment, as the alien hunter was severely wounded and bleeding horribly. Alexa looked back and saw him clenching his wound, sapping with lime green blood. It wasn't long before he collapsed onto his knees and roared out of the sheer agony he was experiencing. This horrified Alexa. She wasn't sure if she could help the injured and dying Yautja out. Her conscience then kicked in, telling her that she must attempt to save the Yautja hunter, using whatever it takes, even in conditions like this. Hesitantly, she walked over to the Yautja, who was sure that his time had come to pass, was inching closer with every second the frosty air touched his damaged body. Although Alexa thought the inhuman face of the Yautja hunter was horrifying and incredibly ugly, to say the least, she heard him cry out, welcoming death with open arms as she got closer to him. Alexa saw a look of hopelessness in his eyes. This Yautja clearly did not want to die, as he was still very young for his kind, and only recently became a blooded warrior. But this was information Alexa had yet to discover. Nevertheless, Alexa still decided that she must do what she could to save his life. The wound in the Yautja's chest from his impalement on the Xenomorph Queen's bladed tail tip was deep, and it had punctured a hole in his body. With no first aid kit to use on the injured Yautja, she realized that there was nothing she could do to save his life. All she could do now was kneel down in his decaying body and say goodbye to the unexpected ally she met on this mission. "I don't know who or what you are, but thank you for saving my life," Alexa said to the dying Yautja, almost teary-eyed. Even though he wasn't human, she knew that his pain at the moment was unbearable, and death could claim him any minute now. The Yautja acknowledged her words, clicking his mandibles in response. He then grabbed some of his own lime green blood and pressed his open claw into Alexa's right cheek. The contact on her skin was burning as she grunted in pain and pushed away the Yautja's hand, for the sudden aching disappeared. As if the abrupt ounce of pain wasn't enough for Alexa to bear at once, the Yautja then spoke to her again, but not in his native tongue. "Scar," he uttered out in a voice that sounded very raspy and hoarse, which must have been expected when jaws like Yautja's were to imitate a human language. Alexa could not believe her ears. She heard this alien speak to her in her own dialect, which she assumed he could not be able to convey himself. Why did he only say one word? And why was that one word Scar, of all things? It was a question flowing freely inside Alexa's mind, and she couldn't not ignore it at all. Did you just speak my language? Questioned Alexa, almost stuttering on how shocked she was. And what do you mean by scar? She questioned him further. The Yautja then clicked his mandibles again, before speaking to Alexa in English once more. Scar, remember the name, he replied, struggling to get the words out with all the pain he was experiencing. It was beginning to make sense to Alexa now. What this Yautja said was apparently his name. An odd one, at that, Alexa would add. Your name is Scar? Asked Alexa, brushing her hand against her own forehead. But as she did so, she noticed that something was not the same. An actual scar had formed there, one of which she was certain did not exist on her body a minute ago. Her eyes widened at the realization that Scar's blood must have formed the new scar on her forehead. Yes, the Yautja replied, coughing up some of his own lime green blood almost immediately after his reply. Once he had stopped hawking up his own blood, he continued to speak to Alexa. That scar on your skin, symbol for honor. He explained to Alexa what the mark on her forehead supposedly meant. Alexa took in what Scar said to her, on the notion that he was honoring her for their alliance in the pyramid, now that it was his time to die. He then began to click his mandibles rapidly as he leaned his head back down on the snowy ground. Scar was shivering, and the heating net of which he wore was heavily damaged. Being the cold-blooded creature he was, the freezing weather around him was excruciating in every sense of the word. Alexa was not immune to the cold, either, despite being a warm-blooded mammal biologically, as that along with dehydration were both starting to overcome her. She collapsed on the ground beside Scar and felt the icy surface against her face. It seemed like Alexa and Scar would spend their last moments after such a short time together, dying in the freezing Antarctic climate, and there was nothing they could do to stop it from happening any other way. So Alexa just closed her eyes and accepted the unforgiving truth that she and this wounded Yautja would die together in a frosty grave. Suddenly, Alexa's eyes opened wide again upon the realization of a bright light being shined down upon her. At first, she thought it was the sun, but as it grew brighter and it drew closer, proved that it was not. It was some sort of spacecraft, as it did not look anything like human aircraft at this point in time, and appeared to be entirely alien in design, and the strange sounds it made as it landed on the island's frozen ground. Scar seemed to be relieved at the sight of the ship's arrival, as he raised his head and let out a series of clicks from his mandibles upon seeing it. Alexa could not figure it out since she just did not have the energy to do so. Instead, lay on the icy ground. If this alien spacecraft descending upon the island was here to retrieve Scar, then what could she have possibly have to gain from this? She thought about it, and did her best to ignore the freezing grasp of the cold Antarctic winds blowing against her. But it proved to be ineffective. Alexa desperately wanted to escape the Antarctic climate, and this spacecraft seemed to be her only chance of salvation. But she could only hope that whoever, or whatever, was aboard the ship had come to save her, and possibly even Scar from both freezing to death. The alien spacecraft had finally touched down onto the island as it extended out its landing gear. Shortly after, a large and blinding light could be seen as what looked like a door opening on ship and a ramp extending itself out. Not only that, but Alexa could also faintly make out a couple strange alien figures exiting the ship and approaching her and Scar. Though her vision was becoming blurry, they appeared to be the same species of Scar. They approached the two freezing individuals, lying on the cold Antarctic snow, as Scar called out to them in his native language, which Alexa could not understand one click of. As her vision was blurred and she soon became lightheaded, it wasn't long before Alexa passed out on the island's icy ground. With Alexa now unconscious, the two approaching Yautja focused their sights on Scar as he desperately called out to save him from freezing to death out in the freezing Antarctic climate. He had achieved victory in his hunt, and he successfully slaughtered a xenomorph queen with help from Alexa, so therefore he did not fail, and death was not obligatory should his fellow Yautja brethren spare him the end of his short-lived life. These two Yautja hunters approaching Scar were two of his brothers by blood, Celtic and Chopper. As Celtic approached Scar, he knelt down on the ice and glanced at the gaping hole and wound in his chest. Scar was gazing up at his fellow Yautja brother with nothing but sheer desperation for survival filling his eyes, to which Celtic acknowledged. He picked up his lacerated brother, bridal style, and spoke to him in his native language. "Don't worry, brother. You will live to hunt another day," Celtic said to Scar in a series of clicks from his mandibles. Scar was losing blood rapidly and becoming increasingly weak by the second, so could not even reply. He simply just stared at his brother with his life hanging in balance, praying to Paya that he would be spared death for now. As Celtic began to carry Scar back to the mothership, Chopper took a glance at the human female passed out in the icy ground near where Scar had been laying there bleeding. He noticed that she was still alive, as his biomask was equipped with thermal heat vision, thus allowing him to read heat signatures of warm-blooded creature. Chopper rolled over her unconscious body and was met with a sight that was beyond surprising to him. This human female, currently in a state of comatose, bared the Yautja mark of honor. With a symbol engraved into her flesh, she was now considered a blooded hunter by Yautja law. Chopper couldn't believe it, as he spread out his mandibles with pure awe. Almost immediately after, he called out to his comrade, "Celtic, this human female is still alive, and she bears the Yautja mark of honor. What shall we do?" He questioned their choices, as neither of them had ever seen a human being with such an emblem etched into their skin before in the entirety of their lives. Celtic did not believe his brother was serious, doubting that it was indeed true. "There's no way an human female can bear the Yautja mark of honor. You must be hallucinating, brother," Celtic replied out of utter skepticism. "If you do not believe me, brother, then take a look," Chopper said as he picked up the unconscious human female in the same manner that Celtic had done with Scar. As Celtic looked back at his fellow brother, he gasped in shock when he saw exactly what he denied was true. This human female was blooded, and most likely didn't even know it, as he could tell that it was a fresh scar on her facial cheek. "Paya, you're right. Get her aboard the mothership quickly. The other clan members and the elders must know about this news immediately," stated Celtic, ordering Chopper to hurry and get Alexa aboard their clan's mothership before she would freeze to death in this Antarctic climate. Chopper nodded and quickly followed Celtic up the ramp leading into the Yautja clan mothership. By now, both Alexa and Scar had been saved by fellow members of the clan, though Scar was dying. Advanced Yautja technology made it possible for their healers to save him from a wound of that magnitude intruding his body. Alexa, however, was still unconscious and had no idea that she remained alive. She was certain that those were her dying last breaths on the island of Boyavete, and now she had made her maker. However, that was just not the case, and the truth would be revealed to her about this mysterious race of alien hunters that attacked the ancient pyramid site on the island. It was only a matter of time before Alexa would regain her consciousness, not on Earth, but beyond, where any human being has ever gone before. This was Galactic Threat, Predator and Prey by Cosmic Sword 11. Love it. Love it. Like I said, as a huge Alien Predator fan, I love that. I like how you kind of went into who the Yautja were. I'm looking forward to reading part 2 of that. I am super looking forward to that. I'm glad you enjoyed my fanfic. I worked very hard on it. I can tell. It was very polished. It was very, it was really, really good. I'm like super excited to read part 2 in another week. Okay, there we go. Like, that was really, really good. I am looking forward to reading more of it. No, I'll be there when you're planning to stream the first chapter. Yes. I will do it. I'm looking forward to it, actually. That's actually really good. I'm really happy with it. Because it definitely ended the first Alien vs. Predator perfectly. Now I do gotta ask, are you going to basically ignore the dumb movie that is Alien vs. Predator 2, whatever it was called, Requiem? It was like, yeah, Requiem. I was right. Are you going to basically be ignoring the events of that movie? Because that movie was, okay, good. Thank God. That movie was not good. I mean, we got to see the Predalien, which was cool. And as soon as Alien vs. Predator 1 ended and the alien popped out of its chest, I was like, oh, cool, it's a Predalien. Or what was it my friend wanted to call it? An alienator. It's like, no, it's a Predalien. I hated that sequel, though. What's the lineup for tonight? I can't see the info on the app. Oh, absolutely. So, for the night, we've already read 2. We read Amber Dance. Let me read that title correctly. We read Amber Dance by Gildy. And we just finished up Galactic Threat, Predator and Prey by Cosmic Sword 11 here. And we got Hiding Bruises by a Goddess of Pain and Agony. That is a Lab Rats one. I've never heard of Lab Rats, so we're going to see how that goes. We've got a Star Wars fanfiction it's called it's the prologue of Eldritch and Ember of the Cinderborn, a Star Wars story. We've got Waiting by Ito Han, a Attack on Titan fanfiction. And we've got Cruel Intentions Lacrimosa by Lunar Blue 21 from the Ice Age movies, which is something you don't really see very often. Ice Age. Just saying, you don't see it often. So yeah, I'm excited to be reading all of those. We just finished up the Predator and Prey one. That was the Alien versus Predator one. Okay. And then we're getting ready to go into the Hiding Bruises one by Goddess of Pain and Agony, which, you know, that name and the author, that sounds good. I noticed it during when I was reading. Oh, let me go back and catch up real fast. Sam, what's going on? Doug just woke up from a nap. Apparently so did Sam, and so did you, Schnarf. We got a napping trio. I did want to say that we have new emotes for those who are subscribing. Sam, you might not have seen it, and Doug, you might not have either. We've got new emotes. We've got the black cat. Oh, and there's our Stream Elements going in and telling us, but incorrectly. Thank you, Stream Elements. Thank you. So we've got the black kitty that's based on my cat. We've got the GNC logo, and we've got a book, given that I do a lot more fan fiction now as of late. You're able to see the book emote, which I actually really like that one. It's a nice emote, and they were all made by a good friend of mine who I was like, hey, I want to get some emotes done, and she made them for me, and it was good. Got to work on sub badges. What do you all think you would like to see for sub badges? I was like, I'm trying to figure that out because I'm not quite sure what I want to do. Want to talk about that we're next Monday. We're actually going to be doing some more D&D as well. Or not more D&D. We're starting a D&D campaign, actually. next week is actually session 0, so you're going to be seeing how to make new characters. 5th edition D&D. Yeah, no, it's really tough. Some people have a really easy time telling what they want to do for their sub badges, and I'm like, I don't know. I know it's something. But on top of the emotes, but for the subscribers, the way I have it based is the higher the tier, the more priority you are in the giant list of things to read. So like tier 3 automatically basically goes first. Then tier 2, then tier 1, then non-subscribers go in there. So I'm actually really excited, and like I opened up the list of things to read, and I was like, oh my god, it's actually like there was actually like 40-50 things dropped in there, and I was like, I wasn't expecting that much. Yeah, D&D, I'm excited. I will tell you, I'm playing a Dragonborn Paladin in our upcoming D&D campaign that will be streamed here. And will be DM'd by the lovely, as always, Doug, who is one of the best. Are you going to be the DM or a PC? I'm going to be a PC. Yeah, I'm not ready to DM at the moment. I theoretically have the books, and I technically can. I think it would just be a little bit funner to be a PC, and have more of like a stream setup like this. I'm gonna finish out all that. I might actually create a pretend character or use an old character and figure out how I want to have it on for layout wise, because that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be good. You know, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun and things like that, and being able to interact with you all and play a game. Because Doug is a phenomenal DM. I've played in games with him for a while now, actually. And he's my brother, so I mean, I know his stories. All of his games actually are really well thought out, well designed, good character hooks and things like that. Eventually, I'd like to be able to play with more of these subs to the channel. Eventually, I think that would be a lot of fun. So I'm excited by it. So what are you all excited to do this weekend? It's Friday, going into the weekend. Is there anything you all are looking forward to doing? Anything you're looking forward to playing? If so, let me know. I'd like to know what you're going to be playing this week. Because I am going to be, okay. Nice of two characters, an elf cleric and an eldritch bard. It's such a blast to play. Well, there you go. You should. I mean, it sounds like shameless self-promotion, but you should sub, and we see about playing, adding. If Doug would be down to add you on Monday nights. Sleep. I got 4 less hours of the last 3 nights. Damn! Each night or over 3 nights? I got over 72 hours. You got 4 hours, 4 hours or less in 72 hours. Watching some classic horror movies. Ooh. Are you going to be watching Them from the 1950s, I believe? About giant irradiated ants in New Mexico. Because if not, you should. That is an amazing movie. Med school interviews are stressful. You know what? You're going to med school, though. That's actually really tough. I've not went to med school. I'm too dumb for it. Oh, 4 hours each night. Oh, okay. It's a little better. Not much better, but a little better. But med school interviews, that's tough. I hope you get in. Like, are you wanting to get in, or are you doing your internship? What other classic horror movies you got? You got Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's an okay movie. Oh my god, The Thing. That's what I was thinking of. The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. It is alright. It's not amazing. In my opinion. I gotta be honest. It relies more upon the fact of you're scared of clowns, which if you're not, then what other classic horror movies are there? There's always classic vampire movies. But to me, vampires aren't super scary at all. Just like cool. Whatever. Yeah, it's been interesting. Let's see, what else? What about Phantom of the Opera? Phantom of the Opera is not super scary to me, but I actually really like Phantom of the Opera. I like the musical. There we go. I actually really like the musical. I'm a musical person. So, like, I actually really like Sound of Music, Phantom of the Opera, Repo the Genetic Opera. I will watch every Disney movie because of the music. One of my favorites is from Tangled. I am a Tangled person. That's my thing. Yeah, I'm trying to get into med school. It's been a very long process. Expensive too, considering you have to travel so much to even get to schools for the interviews. I'm sure you'll get the one that is meant for you. It may not be the one that you want, but it'll be the one that you need to be at. Especially with going into med school. You're going to be there for a reason. You're going to be there to teach you a lesson. To teach you patience or something. It'll be the one that you need to be at. The one that'll challenge you the most. The one that'll make you grow the most, I should say. That's where you'll end up. And don't lose hope. Really, don't. I know you'll get into it. I haven't known you for very long, Schnarf, but I know that you're going to get in somewhere. You are going to go down the path you are meant to take. There's no conceivable way that you won't. What is it? I don't know that it's Uncle Iroh who said, but no matter where you're going in life, always remember, there you are. You will find yourself right where you need to be at the moment you need to be there. I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe in you. You believe in me, I'll believe in you. Sound good? Because it sounds good to me. That's my philosophy. What is it from Gurren Lagann? If you can't believe in yourself, believe in the me that believes in you. I think that was Uncle Iroh. Yes. And you're so positive. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I try to be positive. I try. It's not, it's easy. It's one of those weird things. It's easy for me to be positive towards other people, but it's really difficult sometimes for me to be positive towards myself. So, I mean, there's that. So there's my thought of it's easy to be positive for other people, to lift them up, but it's hard to lift yourself up on occasion. But what is it Uncle Iroh said about that? Uncle Iroh should be like my Uncle Iroh's my spiritual guide. Sometimes life is like a dark tunnel. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but if you keep moving, you'll come to a better place. While it is always best to believe in oneself, a little help from others can be a great blessing. Thank you, Uncle Iroh. Thank you, Uncle Iroh. We know that you're still in the spiritual realm, using nerddom to inspire people. Nerddom, Uncle Iroh should be everyone's uncle. That's why it's never just, it's not just Iroh, it's Uncle Iroh. Uncle Iroh is everyone's spiritual Iroh, considering that he is in the spiritual realm, helping to correct those errors. I believe it. Uncle Iroh, everything Uncle Iroh said was amazing. I don't think he had a bad line in the in the show. Either that or Uncle Al from the Ministry. I don't know that one. I don't know that one. Al Jorgensen? Okay, I was like, huh? He looks like a mixture of, well, one of the pictures he looked like. He looked like he was a mixture of, God, who played Sirius Black. Not Sirius Black quotes. Not Alan Rickman. God, why can't I remember who played him? Gary Oldman. He looks like a mixture of Gary Oldman and Bob Marley. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. That's my theory. I don't know Uncle Al from Ministry. I don't know his work. I'm not a huge... I'm more of I have a weird eclectic taste in music. I missed him. Uncle Iroh is my spiritual mentor. I wholeheartedly believe it. Yeah, no. You'll get it, Snarf. You'll get it. I'm almost positive of it. There you go. Okay. Why don't we, I think he looks more like a mixture of Bob Marley and Jonathan Davis, to be honest. Well, let's look at what Jonathan Davis looks like. Jonathan Davis. Okay, I can see it. I can see it. From Black Labyrinth, I like it. Huh. Oh, he did Queen of the Damned. Who knew? Ooh, I like that quote. I don't like painting flowers in my music. I like painting guts and pain. And you laugh at me because I'm different. But I laugh at you because you're the same. I like it. Nice. I like it. Okay. Let's read the next one. The next fan fiction. Looks like another sort of a long one. I got quite a few long ones tonight. Throw on some chapstick. Because I tell you what, reading, chap your lips. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. Hiding Bruises by Goddess of Pain and Agony. A Labrat's fanfiction. One of the earliest memories Chase has, or at least one of the earliest memories Mr. Davenport will accept him having. It's not possible to remember in the womb, Chase, is of Adam grabbing him by the arm to pull him over to a picture he had been drawing. He remembers crying out in pain at the harsh grip, but moved on easily enough to critique his brother's artwork. He remembers not remembering it until Mr. Davenport got home that evening. What happened to your arm, Chase? Huh? Chase replied curiously, twisting in an uncoordinated move to gaze at his bare upper arm. He looked on in wonder at the mass of dark, purple and blue wrapping around his bicep. He gave it an experimental poke and let out a soft cry at the pain, tears welling. Oh no, what happened? Mr. Davenport picked him up and set him gently on the table, pulling out a med scanner in one smooth motion. Who did this? Ada grabbed me earlier, Chase hiccuped out. He was scared because Mr. Davenport was starting to look angry, and now that he'd noticed it, his arm really did hurt. A sustained ache that just wouldn't let up. Not overly painful, but enough to make a small child cry. He should know better, Mr. Davenport snapped, his face darkening in anger. Chase flinched. Mr. Davenport didn't notice. I'll be fine though, it's just a bruise, didn't even reach the deep tissue, Mr. Davenport started to put the med scanner away, shaking his head. You guys need to be more careful. Your bionics aren't toys. You can't just play with them whenever you want. I'm sorry, Chase answered jerkily. His chest was seizing in an odd, unfamiliar sensation. His breathing was erratic, and his lungs unresponsive. "Oh, Chase, I'm sorry," Mr. Davenport responded immediately, scooping Chase's small body into his arms. "Don't do that, alright? Don't ever apologize for someone else hurting you. This one is all on Adam, buddy." Mr. Davenport's hand was warm on Chase's back and traced a comforting path from his shoulder to the small of his back. He buried his face in Mr. Davenport's neck and focused deeply on deep, calming breaths. He had his crying under control within a minute, and Mr. Davenport was still patting his shoulder and shooing him gently. It's one of the most human memories Chase has. Later, Mr. Davenport yelled at Adam for a long time about responsibility and abusing powers. With such a limited living space, Bree and Chase had nowhere to go to avoid the spectacle and were given front row seats to the 5-star reaming of their older brother. "But Mr. Davenport..." "No, Adam, you need to be more responsible. I'm expecting more out of you," Mr. Davenport interrupted, waving his hands animatedly. "You're the oldest too. You too, Bree." "What did I do?" Bree cried in objection, springing to her feet from her spot behind the smart desk with Chase. "You all take unnecessary and unprofessional risks with your bionics. It's time to grow up. You're setting a bad example for your brother," Mr. Davenport responded. "Chase is 4 years old. You're supposed to take care of and support each other, not dole out bruises." "It didn't happen like that," Adam defended himself, beginning to get worked up. "I don't care how it happened, Adam. You shouldn't be roughhousing with your 4-year-old brother, especially with your strength. It's too dangerous. I don't want to see any more of this. Understand?" Mr. Davenport had waited for resigned acknowledgement from the 2 eldest children before leaving for the night. Bree flopped down on the ground while Adam turned to his younger brother. "Thanks a lot, Chase," he snapped bitterly. "What'd I do?" Chase answered nervously. He dug the nails of his right hand into his left arm harshly, leaving half-moon indentations. "What, Chase? You can't forget the tea," he thought to himself. "You just had to go cry to Mr. Davenport, didn't you?" Adam responded. "Of course he did. He's such a baby," Bree added, tilting her head up from where she was lying on the floor. "Are you even paying attention?" "Yes," Chase answered immediately, slurring his S. "It's just a bruise, Chase. Why do you make everything a big deal?" Adam asked before stomping to his capsule. "What Mr. Davenport goes for you, too. You need to grow up," Bree told him severely. Chase remembered sitting there for a long time after his siblings went to bed, digging into his arm until skin tore and blood welled. It didn't hurt, but really. He was caught up in thoughts of guilt and failure. By the time he retired to his capsule, he felt wrung out and ashamed he had made such a big deal out of a minor accident, upsetting his entire family. "I can be better," he thought to himself. Chase remembers, out of all his memories, having that most of his life. Oops. By the time Leo showed up in their lives, Chase hadn't been sleeveless in years. He remembers Mr. Davenport's questioning glance at his request for long, heavy shirts and durable pants, but he'd acquiesced easily enough. He probably thought it was a stylistic choice, not a practical one. He didn't know Chase was covering marks traced his arms, back, and chest. It wasn't that bad when it started. It was just Adam, Big Ada, pulling him into whining. Chasey, see? And not paying attention to his strength. A handprint here or there. No big deal to cover and easy to ignore. He got used to the ache of popped and ruptured blood vessels quickly. Then it got worse. Mr. Davenport decided they were old enough for the real training. He brought in weapons and martial arts and fighting. Chase didn't stand a chance. He was just adjusting his wardrobe, adjusting his daily activities, focusing most of his lives on hiding the evidence of incompetence. He remembers the first bruise he got from Bree when he was 9 years old, and they were practicing martial arts. He made to swing at her, and suddenly she wasn't there, and he was punching air. He stumbled, off balance, and she appeared to his side, knocking him onto his back with enough force to drive the breath from his lungs. Adam laughed. Later in the bathroom, he tried twisting and contorting his body before finally giving up and finding a second mirror to bounce his own reflection off of. His entire back was a mass of raw, bruised skin. He sat on the edge of his chair for 2 weeks. But it was still achievable. Maybe not easy, but it wasn't awful by any stretch. They were still his family. It's not like they were out to purposely injure him. They'd never hurt him on purpose. It was just a string of really bad, painful bad luck. He was the smartest person alive, and he could damn well handle it on his own. He didn't need a daddy or a mommy. He didn't need his big sister or big brother to babysit him like a small child. He was a mission leader, and he'd take care of them, even if they didn't know he did. Even if he could still do better. It got worse when Leo came. In a lot of ways, his life got far better than he had any reason to hope when Leo came. He had a world of possibilities before him that Mr. Davenport finally seemed willing to consider Chase. He was openly throwing around words like education, career, future. Mr. Davenport was letting him. It wasn't just missions anymore. There was talk about the future of Davenport Industries, the next tier of education. And Chase had never been so excited to think about tomorrow in his entire life. Tomorrow had never had any potential of being different from today. Beyond that, Leo brought a level of personal interaction Chase had found himself sorely lacking. Leo was younger, impressionable, amazed by their very being, and yet able to still treat them like family. Chase had never been older than anyone in his family, and he reveled and flourished in the role of big brother, which isn't to say he was perfect. He would say it, and fast. But in the dark, secret corner of his mind that still wanted to dig nails into flesh and taste blood and feel pain, he knew he wasn't. Chase never got close to perfect, but Leo didn't seem to mind. So it was good. It was better. However, for all that Leo improved in his life, there's some ways he made it worse. One way he made it worse. He encouraged their use of bionics unabashedly and endlessly. That in and of itself wasn't a bad thing, at least not on its own. His encouragement helped them grow and unlock parts of their programming they hadn't even known existed. It also led to the creation of games like Bionic Brother Bounce. And no matter how many times Chase pushed black fingers into his pockets, told himself it's the same, nothing's changed, it's the same. He couldn't convince himself this wasn't meant to hurt. It was so recklessly potentially dangerous. It wasn't accidental or unintentional injury. It was pain for the sake of pain, and it cut straight through the bone, skin, muscle, and bone into his core. It tore straight through to that dark place, and it burned. Chase just picked up some concealer and considered buying hoodies. After 11 years of covering bruises and hiding scars, Adam lost his confidence. It was the best thing to ever happen, Chase thought. And sure, it was depressing to watch the big lug mope around, scared to exercise strength so commonplace was an integral part of him. And maybe Chase felt a few twinges of regret after the first burst of joy at being bruise-free for the first time in memory. Not enough to do anything about it. If Mr. Davenport hadn't approached him, he never would have even thought about attempting to draw out the old, cocky Adam. But Mr. Davenport's tight, drawn face and concerned words broke through to him, because he'd been living with those bruises for so long to protect his family, right? Because no one should stress over something so small. Because he didn't make a big deal out of everything. Because he was trying to be better. So he went along with Mr. Davenport, because it would be selfish to do otherwise, and make his life's biggest work turn to the biggest waste of time. And it didn't work quite like it should, but it did work. A few bumps and snags along the way never stopped the mission leader before, and it didn't this time. Not when the mission turned out a success, anyway. And if his chest seized an odd, vaguely familiar sensation, his breathing erratic and lungs unresponsive, every time he looked at his capsule, well, it was his business. And he could do better. If Of course, he couldn't go back to his previous style after that. Mr. Davenport would have naturally found suspicion there. So feeling like a liar and wondering why he should act like his lifelong dance would look suspicious now, he bought a lot more concealer and trashed the hoodie idea. But nothing ever ends halfway in a family with bionic superhumans, billionaire geniuses, and Leo. And a sociopath, they would come to find out. And really, what? So it got even worse. In fact, Chase would dare say, it got as bad as it could get, within the realm of reason. Actually, maybe a little bit outside, tripping the borders of Joker-level insanity. Because how was this violence, hateful team atmosphere reasonable? How is it Chase against the bruises, Chase against the taunts, Chase against the hustle and muscle, Chase against the dark, and Chase against the failure? How could Chase be so singled out that the blanket of naive childhood trust and sibling love become non-existent in his life, where previously it had covered all he knew? And how was this reasonable? It didn't make sense. It's not supposed to, idiot, he thanked to himself as his arm itched and his fingers twitched. It's called emotions, you robot. And that's what it came down to. No matter how many times Bree would scream at him, just admit it, you think you're better than us. Well, we know you don't need to keep throwing it in our faces. Or Adam would glare at him. Why do you have to act like I'm stupid all the time? Or Leo would mockingly sympathize. You're just going to keep trying to be trying for perfect, aren't you? But you realize that you put everyone else down when you do that. Chase knew the problem. The problem wasn't what Chase thought or said or did. The problem was with what Chase was. The problem was how easily threatened they were all of him. Which had to be emotional, because it certainly wasn't reasonable. It wasn't even sane. Not when he was taping gauze to a bleeding wrist at midnight, on a school night, when he should have long since been in his capsule, or trying to avoid the cashier's eyes he slapped the biggest container of concealer they had on the counter, or dropping meals off the map, because every bite felt like chewing glass, and tasted like sand. Not when he was scrapping for baggy clothes, short sleeves, because of Adam, bleeding out right in front of them. And the bastards didn't even notice. His safety and his mental well-being seemed to be a trivial matter for them. No, not even a matter at all. They don't care. And I thought his head was going to explode. Sure, Chase could barely hear it over the blood pounding in his ears and the system overload shouting in his head. But it still broke through. It hurt. When he woke up later, he tried not to think about it, because it didn't mean anything. It wasn't representative of anything, and he was supposed to not make big deals out of nothing. It didn't matter how flippant Adam was. Adam was always flippant. Even if he had been choking on his own guilt when he thought Adam was dead, too stunned with grief to even think about ripping into his arm. It still didn't mean anything. Except they wanted you to hurt. That dark corner of his mind hissed it out as he looked over Adam's charred knee. Because he protects his family, even if they don't want him to. Except they didn't care about you. Except they wanted you to die. It all comes to a head, with heat vision melting through his shield. His mind is burning a hole in his brain, and he's going to die if he doesn't scream. And his system overloading, and his half-starved, exhausted body starting to give out. He doesn't believe that they would do it for him. The very foundation of his being, his family, his reason for breathing and living and working so damn hard, is cracked irreparably. He is seeing through a facade he had been believing his whole life, staring at an ugly truth head on. They would rather Chase die than deal with him any longer. And doesn't it say something that Leo put his life on the line with the trust that Chase would respond to his memories of love and break free of his programming to protect his brother? And that Chase didn't even think to try it with Adam or Bree? He doesn't want to see just how much it wouldn't work. After his victory, surrounded by the shattered remnants of his life, his family strewn about the wreckage, this happened. I tried so hard. Why wasn't I enough? Chase felt a numbness wash over him. For the first time in a long time, he didn't have anything speaking inside of him. That place he could never quite gag and conquer was mercifully quiet when his body gave out, black overtaking his vision. His last thought was, "Please, let me not wake up." He wakes up. He's wrapped in several blankets on a cot on the living room floor. Chase doesn't feel as warm and comfortable in a very long time. Too long. It isn't until he tries to push himself up into a sitting position, intending to look around, take in his environment, and figure out what exactly happened, that he realizes his entire body feels like one massive bruise. He's starving from days on the run without food, as well as improper eating habits weeks prior. His entire bionic network has been overloaded twice in one day, and he has a massive headache that he's almost sure is Adam's fault. As soon as he moves this, as well as the aches and pains of sore muscles, from sleeping and sitting in a stretched, tense position for hours at a time, all make themselves known loudly and violently. He grunts in pain, and everything flies into activity around him. Adam, Bree, and Leo had been asleep in a tangle on a couch, which didn't hurt to see. He doesn't care if he never gets sibling cuddles like that. It's such a baby desire anyway. But springs up and fight to separate their limbs at the sound of his pain. Tasha jerks herself straight from where she has been slumped by his bedside, hand resting on his forearm. Mr. Davenport jumps from his seat, the kitchen island. It all happens at once, and is too fast for Chase to process in his groggy state. In the next moment, Mr. Davenport is pushing Tasha from his side and taking her place. "Chase, can you hear me? How many fingers am I holding up? How's your head?" "Mr. Davenport?" Chase shouts, shoving the man's grasping fingers away from his chest. They return, prying open his button-up and pushing something cold against his skin. "Can you stop?" "Chase, you need to let me check you over, and you need to lay back down. Don't you remember what happened?" Chase kind of doesn't, so he shakes his head minutely and resists the pressure Mr. Davenport is exerting, trying to force him into a reclining position. "Chase, you weren't breathing. I had to restart your heart." "What?" "No way," Chase croaks out, and lets himself be manhandled in whatever position Mr. Davenport wants. "Yes, a way?" "Look, you need to take it easy and let me monitor your condition frequently. You could go into shock, which could lead to cardiac arrest, which could lead to death," Chase guesses. He meant it to sound lighthearted, but after he says it, he realizes it doesn't. Someone gasps behind him, and he doesn't care enough to see who. "Yeah, it could." Mr. Davenport is silent for a moment, fiddling with a Z-pad that Chase assumes is currently on a readout of his medical status. "And Chase, we need to talk." "About?" Chase infuses his words with as much teenage venom as he can. He's still aching, and his headache is, if anything, getting worse. He has no patience for Mr. Davenport's particular brand of cryptic melodrama. "About your bruises." Mr. Davenport returns, easily enough, which isn't his nature, and would be worrying enough to gain Chase's attention, even disregarding the heart-stopping sentence. Chase turns his head to stare in utter confusion, and he hopes hidden terror. "And about your wrist." "I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm talking about this." Mr. Davenport yanks Chase's arm out from under the blanket. His wrist has been professionally cleaned and bandaged. It looks surreal, and much different from his hasty job with tape and dollar store gauze. Makes it look real. Makes it look like a problem. "Donald, maybe now isn't the best time," Tasha says quietly, and her hand is on his head. He closes his eyes as her fingers comb through his hair, and Chase is so grateful. He wouldn't have been able to tear his eyes away from his own. He tilts his head into her palm and moves closer, twirling his hair around a finger with her other hand. "Yeah." Mr. Davenport agrees in a quiet, emotionless voice. It makes Chase feel guilty, but he doesn't know why. "You hurt them." They're hurting because of you. Why? Yeah, it can wait. Mr. Davenport is continuing. His hand rests heavily on Chase's knee. Just know how much we love you. We're gonna get you through this. As a family. Yeah, Bree says suddenly from the couch, and she's pulling her brothers to Chase's side. We're going to take care of you. They're hurting because you're hurting. He realizes dimly. Feels like a revelation of some kind. But now all his thought is slowing down, and he feels comfortable and warm again. His aches are retreating, or maybe it's him retreating, falling deeply into nothingness. Feels like the kind of sleep he used to be afraid of. But he just can't find any fear in him. His family will catch him. This was Hiding Bruises by Goddess of Pain and Agony. A Lab Rat's fanfiction. That one was rough. That one was rough. It was... Is there another part to it? Because it feels like... Nope, there's not another part to that one. So what is Lab Rats? I've never seen that show. I've never even seen or heard that show before. So much abuse for that poor character. Yeah, no joke. Like, I have no idea. Apparently it's a Disney XD show? Which, I guess if you want to... I guess? I'm confused? Because I'm like, you could see and feel the layers of hurt, the rationalization, the self-blame. Yeah. Yeah. And I hope I was able to convey that tone in my voice. What's up, Nightwing? Is it me, or does it smell like Updog in here? No, it doesn't smell like Updog. Nice. I like those kind of... I don't know, like... I don't know that if there's no second part, it almost feels like... It doesn't... There's no conclusive good ending. It just feels like... It still feels like no matter what, there's still going to be abuse there. I hope there's a second part. I hope the author makes more parts. It was published last year. I'm gonna contact the author eventually and be like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna actually contact the author and be like, hey, is there gonna be more parts? Because I'd love to read more. Hey, what's going on, Gord Lord? Nice show. Nice show. Maybe it's just meant to illustrate what goes on in the mind of an abuse victim. They did a great job. No, either way, like, it's not a... If it's standalone, it is a good example of what goes on in the mind of an abuse victim, like you said. If there is more, I look forward to seeing how they change, how they evolve the characters. Yeah, that's where I would go with that. Um, yeah, no, like it was really well written. I'll say that. Like reading it, it was heartbreaking. You know, seeing all of that, and it's true. It is the thoughts and mind process of an abuse victim. So it's interesting. It's like I said, it's heartbreaking, but it's you know, I don't know. It's just there's a lot to process there of how do you. It's a really good. It was a really good writing. Yeah, that's where I think I'll go with there. But hey, thank you for coming in, Gourd Lord. I appreciate that. How are you doing today? I need a moment after that one. Oh, okay. And welcome to the stream, by the way. Love having people hang out. Chat about writing. If you're a writer, let me know. There should be a command to submit your own writing if you are a writer. I gotta look that up real fast. Yeah, of course. There you go. If you're a writer of your own, let me know. Because you can submit your own work there, and it'll be added to the giant roster of things to read next Friday. I've already got this week's set up. I'm actually really happy. There is actually a lot of things on there. That actually makes me feel really happy. That this is not just a small thing. It's a community thing. I'm really hoping to make it that sort of thing of that this isn't just my show, as it were. It's our show. It's something for all of us. And that's actually where I reached out to the subreddit, the subreddit for fanfiction. Exactly, it's your show, because I wouldn't be reading anything if not for you all. And I hope that in ways that in reading it, your work is able to get out to other people who wouldn't normally have read it. That's actually one of the hardest things, and I would think that any content creator would agree, is getting people to hear or read your stuff, to reach out and have that read. That's the hardest thing, especially when maybe you're the black sheep of the family, or your friend group, and they don't really dig, Alien versus Predator nearly as much. And you're like, but I wrote an Alien versus Predator fanfiction. Please, if you read it, it would be good, but you don't get it. That's the toughest part. As a streamer, most of my extended family does not care, does not even know what Twitch is. And I kind of screwed myself going to a Bible college that, by playing video games and doing this sort of thing, isn't super smiled upon. So, like, I understand that plight of, just look at my stuff. Yeah, your friend Camera wasn't too thrilled about my fanfic, and that always sucks. Although, okay, so let me ask that question. Wasn't too thrilled as in didn't care to even read it, or read it and was like, I'm not a fan? Because, like, the fact if he read it, that's still amazing that he still read it. I mean, it sucks that maybe he didn't like it. That's his loss. But he did read it? I know he didn't even care to read it. Okay, yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I have a friend of mine that we did a lot of work together, and I'm like, dude, check this out, check stream out, check this out, check the podcast that I manage out, and I'm like, check it out, and just doesn't, and I'm like, that hurts in my soul. But it's like, you want me to support your stuff, and I'm like, it hurts. It's so nerve-wracking to actually have someone close to you read something you put yourself into. I've only let my husband read my stuff. Yeah. Especially when you write stuff that isn't easy to read. Your friend Frederick, on the other hand, he loved it. Good for Frederick. Like, taking an example of the previous one, Hidden Bruises. Can you imagine showing that to your friend and going, read this, and they look at you and go, dude, do you want to talk about something? Should we go get coffee? Do you want to talk? But it's like, you want to write that. It's like, in a weird sense, having a favorite television show that no one around you cares to even watch. And you're like, I just want to talk about the show. Somebody, anybody, really. And it in a weird sense, it almost becomes like a prison. It's like, I'm excited to have different things that we're reading. I'm excited to talk about these things, but it sucks and it hurts. When they're just like, they don't care. Which is why I hope that through this stream, Friday streams especially, that this becomes like a place to have your stuff read and get critical thought and effort put into it. Especially when things the characters go through and they're very similar to things you've suffered through. Exactly. I know that, I mean, I don't have nearly the story, but I mean, I know that there was some, in my past, there's some abuse. Like, I tell stories to one of my best friends at work, and she's like, it sounds like you were raised in a cult. And I'm like, maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. We don't know yet. But that's why I hope that this grows into a community thing that you can recommend to your friends, your writer friends, and be like, hey, come check this out. You know, your work is read, and even if it's tough, there's no judgment. Like, even if something is not super to my liking, I don't go, it was terrible. I still find something about it that I liked. I still find the writer in there. I still find the gems that make it go, that was good. There was a lot of love poured into it. Like, I may not be a Zootopia fan. I read one that was Zootopia, and I'm like, I'm not a Zootopia fan. I'm not air quotes a furry, but I'm like, still a lot of effort went into that, and I love that. I love the effort put into it. That it wasn't just like, I've seen some fanfictions that are troll fanfictions that are like, it feels like they might have been written in 5 minutes, and they jam in every expletive and every character from every popular game, and it's like, this was written as a joke, and it makes, if someone was to read that for the first time, they'd think this is what all fanfiction is, and it hurts. Because I'm not a writer. I'm not. I am a reader. See, that's what I hope, is that this Friday streams will become a place to recommend to your writer friends to consider subscribing and supporting that, and I'd love to get more people involved. Yeah, that's where I'm at, of like, to get more people involved, to get their stuff read. At the end of the day, like, this is all about you all. Like, the moment you all are like, no, I don't want my stuff read, is the moment I don't have anything to read. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this is your show, like we said earlier. It's your show. I'm just the mouthpiece, I guess. What do you say we read the next one? How's that sound? Let's read. There we go. By Eldritch Ember. Boom. Ooh, that doesn't look good. Boom. How's that look? Looks a little better. Okay. Let's go ahead and read the next one. Cinderborn, a Star Wars story by Eldritch Ember. Prologue. We are the survivors of the Star Destroyer Tessalon, marooned on a world without name. TN 14121110, or Tin, as his friends called him, sat back, his fingers hovering over the impromptu transmitter keys, quivering like blades of grass in a hurricane. The transmitter itself was a heavy, cumbersome thing, something like a large brick of hardened midnight. It was about 2 paces across and a forearm lengths tall. Along its edge and over its surface glowed vines of green. Its leftward side preferred a slowly spinning dish skyward, and on its face glowed the screen over which Tin hunched. All told, it was an ugly thing, but it functioned, and that was all that mattered. Whatever he called, he sent out mattered little. The chances of any cry, however loud, being heard of so far from the faintest spark of civilization were beyond minute. Still, he had to try. You're few in number and without means of escape. Send aid. Again, he paused, engulfed in an overwhelming tide of memories, so cold, terrible, and heavy, they threatened to bury him alive, snuff out from wherever more the dimming ember of his shattered heart. He started again, pale, black eyes fixed on the lambent screen, its sickly green letters staring back, challenging him, taunting him, terrifying him. Tin fell back, arms slack at his sides, faint steps crunched from behind. Then a heavy hand rested on his shoulder, banishing the phantoms he could not ignore, anchoring him to be here and now. Hey, Tin. How comes it? The voice belonged to Onyx, a stout fellow with a low baritone voice that soothed his comrades as easily as it terrified his foes. As well as you'd expect, Onyx. He smiled sadly. I can compose messages. Those signals are just fine. But I can't transmit anything. Well, Onyx sighed, breathed rasping mechanically through his helm. That's not ideal. Are you sure about that? Tin lifted off his helm, its black void-like eyes staring emptily heavenward. Beneath his equally dark hair was plastered to his scalp, gleaming wetly with perspiration. I think a transmitter that doesn't transmit is living the dream. His voice took on a sardonic tone, matching his shallow smile on his lips. Onyx smiled heavily, eliciting a dry laugh from his comrade. Alright, well, whatever you're doing, whenever you're done amusing yourself, we're at the wreck, seeing what we can scavenge. Come help if you can. Tim nodded, then rose to his feet, sweeping up his helmet in a trailing hand. Well, might as well leave this for later. There's nothing more I can do without power. The pair made their way downhill, bone-white armor set affixed in the midday light. Their gait was the slow, heavy pace of men who knew neither journey nor destination had meeting. Ahead, their fallen Star Destroyer loomed, rising from the grassy plains like a slate-gray blade. its immense form shrouded in a veil of acrid smoke. Its once sleek hull was pitted and rough, pock-marked in a thousand places by shards of Starkiller base, as it was torn apart from within, unable to restrain the demon in its belly any longer. It had slashed the midnight sky like a blade of molten steel, grinding across placid meadows and leaving in its wake a vast, dark scar. There it lay, smoldering and lifeless, a behemoth, seething in the night. When morning came, bathing the bleak hull in its honeyed light, only a few figures stirred. 10 crept stooped and haggard into the cheerful day, their armor cracked and eyes downcast, the feet heavy on their shoulders. Now as Tin and Onyx descended, they saw the true horror of that wretched night, when cries were unanswered and blood ran like rain. Thousands of bodies lay in orderly rows, glistening like ivory carvings set side by side, a giant's playthings displayed with care. Among them strode the living, cradling their slain brothers in shaking arms. Ten inhaled sharply, a cold blade spearing his heart as he looked over those fields of motionless white. A snowstorm come in spring, a pale mantle through which thin patches of green peeked. How... His voice was hoarse, chafed, and scarred with sorrow. How did we survive that? Onyx shrugged. Behind the tapered oblongs of his visor, his eyes burned with pain. It touched his voice with razor claws, turning it ragged at the edges. A curse of the worst sort. Tim nodded. He understood exactly what Onyx meant. So many had fallen. So many brilliant lives had burned themselves out. And now he was left to dig the graves, tend to the ashes, carry their extended dreams within his own heart. Tin? Onyx asked. And only now did the broken trooper realize that he had frozen, standing still as a statue carved from the very image of grief, a figure in mid-step, helm tucked under one arm, eyes wide and staring, lips parted slightly, and breath hissing quickly between. This is all Tin's fault. Tin's voice was hoarse, fragile even. The sound of steel bent to the brink of breaking, the hush of surrender, the keen edge of terrible pain. Onyx rested his heavy hand on his comrade's shoulder, but whatever he had meant to say died on his lips when he saw the stricken look on Tin's face. It was times like these when words could not bind the wounds, only deepen them. Did he think none of us hated death as he did? Did he think we were never afraid? Onyx shifted uncomfortably. FN 2187 is dead. Murdered by the Resistance hero Finn. Tim's eyes were cold and dark, glimmering with terrible pain. Shocked by the sharpness of his own words, he fell silent, and when at last he spoke again, it was with a fierce pace, perfect tune with the beating of his fury-seared heart. He turned his back on us, Onyx. He claimed weariness of death, of drenching his hands in innocent blood, so instead, he bathed them in ours. I know, Onyx said uncertainly, but he pressed on anyway. He took something from us all when he left. I still wonder how he could turn his back so easily, if he ever truly was one of us. Oh, he was, when it served him. But once he got a taste of battle, once he saw what it meant to be a soldier of the Order, he decided that bloodshed sickened him, until at last, the light set him afire and filled his heart with hate. We don't have to go down there just yet. We can wait a bit if it's too hard to look at. Tin sighing. Waiting won't bring them back. neither will suffering. Another sigh. I'm alright. Time is something of which we have precious little. I'd better not waste it. With that he descended the hill, smoothly plopping his helmet back over his head as he went, obscuring the pain in his eyes, the tightness of his jaw. What his armor could not hide, however, was the fist he kept clenched and trembling at his left side, a symbol of the rage burning in his veins, like a river of molten steel. That was the kind of fire which wise men feared, for it was one nothing in all the world could extinguish, not even the vengeance for which it yearned. Onyx gritted his teeth, then descended after his comrade, knowing there was nothing more he could do, yet feeling no better for it. They trudged down, replacing clean air, the stench of death, and recently extinguished flame. Here, each breath was thick with smog, the fumes lending a palpable weight to the shrouded skies. It seemed as if they strode beneath a filth-clotted stream as they approached, helmets filtering the worst of it, but leaving still a haunting odor. There was, after all, nothing in all the world that can fully purge the scent of death, nor lessen the sorrow its grip brings. Ahead, a few troopers drifted like dour phantoms, placing among the fallen, their movements leaving whirls and eddies in the thick mire, their datapads glowing like plates of muted starlight. Identifying the dead was a task for one which only the mad yearned, for each slack face tore away a part of already scarred hearts and left wounds that would never fully heal. Each time they stooped, each time they rose there with a coldness, a loss clinging fast to their armored frames. They became like spirits themselves, wraiths chained down by regret. Even their steps seemed distant, quiet, faint as whispers in a hurricane. Tin knelt beside one of the fallen, smoke billowing around him like a wind-swept cowl, clinging to his body in fraying strands. Now, not even his armor could hide his trembling. When he stood again, his eyes blazed behind their black tombs, and whatever sadness there had been before was burned away in that terrible heat. "Let's be gone from this place," he whispered, voice tight with rage. "There's nothing that can be done here." "Not until the smoke clears anyway," Onyx agreed. "Except, of course, identifying the dead." Tin's eyes shone like obsidian wedges within their bleached white helm as he fixed a basilisk stare upon his friend. Then he wept a single, molten iron tear hidden beneath his helm, but obvious all the same. "You're right. Onyx, we cannot bring them back. Not with hate, not with sorrow. But there's one thing we can do, and more often than not, it is the only." His fist tightened, thin rivulets of crimson slowly coiling around his fingers, dripping thick and dark to the earth. "Remember them." This was the prologue of Cinderborn, a Star Wars story by Eldritch Ember. Oh my god. So Schnarl, you were absolutely right. These last few fics have been on the darker, edgier side. Love it. I actually really liked that one. It was very much like you could feel the emotion behind it. And it was so good. I am really... Mine's going to get darker too eventually. Yeah, I hope so. Well, it's Alien versus Predator. More so Predator so far. But yeah, I'll agree. I think there is something to be said about darker works. There's a lot more, you can put more power emotions behind them. So you've got like your hate, your sorrow, your rage. You've got a lot of emotion you can put behind them. That's not to say when you have that's not to say when you have a light emotion you're not able to. But yeah, it's interesting. I like it. Okay. I'm glad that yours is getting darker as well. Like, I'm really leaning metal while writing these. Seems to work too, at least for me, that is. Yeah, a metal is a very heavy timbre for music. So it's got a lot of emotion behind it to get your heart racing. So when your heart races, it's because of anger, it's because of fear, it's because of a lot of there is a darker tone to it. That's why a lot of metal, heavier metal music has the colors black and red associated with it, whereas light and airy is blue, white, and pink. So when you're writing darker stuff, writing more heavy metal gets also a lot deeper. That's all about music. It's like a lot of music theory, in that by having something that's heavier and darker while you're writing, it helps you channel that, basically. I mean, you're not going to be listening to Vivaldi while writing the Death of the Younglings. Listen to metal for my writing, but for movie soundtracks, lots of Hans Zimmer. I actually listened to a lot of Tool, Candlemass, Slipknot, and Nightwish while writing Predator and Prey. Nice. I like a lot of movie soundtracks as well. I do a lot of coding in my job. So weirdly enough, in a weird sense, I got hooked on listening to Alone by Marshmello while coding. So I'll listen to that song on repeat. But while I'm working on other stuff, like I'll listen to game soundtracks, like a lot of, it sounds really dumb, but I'll listen to a lot of Breath of Fire, Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, Zelda, Undertale. A lot of good stuff. The soundtrack can be perfect for suspense. Thinking here, the Interstellar soundtrack. Oh, 100%. 100% that. Hans Zimmer knows how to write a soundtrack. Hans Zimmer knows how to write a soundtrack that makes you go, okay, that's where we're going. This is what we're gonna do. It's good. I like it. Okay. You know, it's fascinating that music theory as a whole, because it's one of those things of, think about movies you watch. If you were to watch a movie and the soundtrack was all wrong, you'd notice it. But if the soundtrack is correct, you definitely don't notice it. You know? It's fascinating. You know? Music theory is really cool. Like, think about Zelda, Breath of the Wild. That soundtrack works so well because it fits the emotion of the game. You just rattled off some of the best video game soundtracks and composers. Final Fantasy, Zelda, and Breath of Fire and Chrono Trigger and all. They are some of the best games ever made. I'm actually super excited, and this is going to be kind of it's definitely a plug. So tomorrow, I'll be actually recording a podcast that will release Sunday. And I'm going to be interviewing the author of the book, The Psychology of Zelda. It is an amazing book. I did get it sent to me for free, I will say that, because the author was like, hey, you should probably read my book before you interview me. I did get the book for free, but it was amazing. I have no gripes with it. It talks about, like, I mean, some of the chapters. I'll read you the chapters. They'll tell you should get it. Embodying the virtual hero, a link to the self. It's dangerous to go alone. The hero's journey in The Legend of Zelda. So talking about hero's journey. Let's see. Snarf says Asger's themes are perfect for studying and getting some good shit done. That and Death by Glamour. Nocturne of Personal Shadow. The Archetypal Attraction. Unmasking Grief, applying the Kubler-Ross 5 stages grief model to the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. The Protective Power of Destiny, post-traumatic growth in the Legend of Zelda. The Quest for Meaning in the Legend of Zelda. The Song of the Ritos, the psychology of the music within the Legend of Zelda series. Triforce Heroes and Heroines, transcending the opposites through the Golden Power. And the Legend herself, from Damsel in Distress to Princess of Power. Good book. And I'm actually interviewing tomorrow Dr. Anthony Bean. Super pumped, super nervous. No, because I'm a Zelda fanatic. I love Zelda. And it's really cool to see break down into like stages of grief, talking about how Zelda started out as a typical victim of benevolent sexism, which is a word I learned. Of basically like you need to protect her, and she has no agency of her own, basically, until we reach Breath of the Wild, where she's like, she doesn't need anyone. She flat out tells her father, I don't need Link to protect me, I can do it myself. But then in a sense, comes back to a middle ground of like, doesn't need Link, but wants Link to be around as a companion. It's interesting. I like Zelda that much. Both the game and character. And how basically around Ocarina of Time, her character started to change. So she actually became a key pivotal player in Ocarina of Time, and then through Twilight Princess, through Wind Waker, became an integral part of the story, and became part of what kept things going, basically. So, I'm actually really excited by it. Zelda's one of my favorite, Zelda is one of my favorite series of all time. You know? Just a thought. So yeah, what else? I mean, what other music do you listen to while you're working on stuff? Because like I said, I listen to a lot of game soundtracks. A lot of people don't like game soundtracks, and I'm like, what's the matter with you? Game soundtracks are amazing. You know? Yeah, it's fascinating. Oh, cool. Huh, just looking over some of the new features on the chat stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. I actually really enjoy I really enjoy it. There's a lot that can be done. The Octopath Traveler soundtrack is really good too. I actually really like that one. Oh, no. There we go. There we go. Like to say, hey, so I gave out a community sub, so it went to someone random, and it appears Sharf. Congratulations on your tier 1 sub. Enjoy the sub. You can now use the emote. Give it to the community. Turns out, Snarf, you're the lucky recipient of that one. Congratulations. Hope you enjoy it. I think you can use the cat emote now. Lots of cat spamming to be had there. And thank you for the follow there, Cosmic Sword. I appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out. Let's see. We got a couple more to read. Also, I noticed you all created your, it looks like you created your channel, your accounts to watch, and thank you for that. I know I was looking at some of the chat stuff, and I was like, hey, wait a minute. You all created your account basically to watch me, and that feels really good. Okay, let's read another one. This is a shorter one, but we got this one. Waiting by Itohan. An Attack on Titan fanfic. Chapter 1. Waiting. It happened so fast. A terrifying nightmare she could not leave. The voices never stopped tormenting her, begging, screaming. It was all the same. Nothing more than a quiet mumble. How long would it go on? And then it stopped. Her crystal torn apart and piercing her skin, cutting her open. Blood running down her skin. It didn't matter. Her wounds would end up healing one day. Cold. Why? Two arms pulled her into a tight embrace. I've waited all these years. Head pressed against a hard chest, she cried, her tears soaking through his shirt. I missed you so much, Annie. Please, don't leave again. The embrace tightened around her, and his head came to the top of hers. His long hair brushed against her neck, with his tears flowing the same path. Why? Another voice echoed through the space. Sir, we don't have any more time. We need to leave now, if we don't want to raise suspicion. His head rose, and he put one of his cold hands onto her neck, as if to shield her. Go on, flock. Prepare everyone to leave for Shigashina. Then he addressed her again. He used a tone of voice she could not identify. It sounded kind, almost like a whisper, compared to the harshness he used to address the other man. Come on. He stood up, and she fell down as she lost her support with him. The ground was hard, and she struggled to get up onto her knees. She was too weak to move her limbs. She wouldn't be able to use her ring, or even bite her tongue. She was at his mercy. He took her hands into his cold ones, and pulled her up, now standing in front of him. She finally dared to use her strength to open her eyes. Aaron. Her eyes met, and he slowly let go of her right hand, now steadily holding the other within his left. He looked so much older. How much time had passed? Let's go home. Why did he look at her, with eyes so kind? This was Waiting by Itohan, an Attack on Titan fanfic. Schnarf says, I'm going to have to sign out for this one. I've only seen the season 1 of Attack on Titan and don't want to spoil the rest. That did not spoil anything other than season 1. That was absolutely only season 1. Only 3 minutes long. Not bad. That was very short. Yeah, it was. It's multi-chaptered. I actually really like when they're kind of shorter. Giant walls of text. Sometimes I'm like, oh my god, it's a lot of. It's a lot. Because on occasion you just get lost in it, and you're going, oh my god, there's so much text. But yeah, it's interesting. I like Attack on Titan. I think it was one of the first ones that I really remember being super dark, in my opinion. Only first ones that I watched that was super dark. I should really be clear. Because all the other ones were pretty much like not Attack on Titan. God, I was just describing Attack on Titan. Was mostly like Full Metal Alchemist, Naruto, Avatar. I really hadn't watched a dark anime until Attack on Titan, and now I watch Goblin Slayer and Rising the Shield Hero. I think this one's gonna be a little longer, a lot longer. So let's break into that one. And this is actually the last one for the night. Okay. Actually, I need to... Just kidding! I have to update some stuff. I've noticed I've got to be better about that. Boom. Okay. Just kidding, we haven't started it yet. Haha! Oops. That was the wrong thing to do. The wrong thing to do. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Okay. Now we got it. Lacrimosa. It's a great word. Let's do it. Cruel Intentions, Lacrimosa, by Lunar Blue 21, an Ice Age fanfiction. Chapter 1. The sun was fading behind the mountains of the valley, leaving soft hues of mauve, blue, and purple, mingling into the smoky aura as the dusk pervaded into the depths of the river basin. As the last slender thread of the sun's rays disappeared, smoky wisps of clouds lingered in the smoke momentarily before drifting off. Shadows of night sought rest amongst the darkening grays in the hillocks and meadows of the river valley below. One light, glimmering brightly out of the present darkness, shining like a beacon out of the cavern, fitting its glow defiantly against the ravages of the twilight. Within the cavern, Sid the Sloth added a log of kindling to the fire he had fostered gently. His face red from the heat, but even that could not hide the intelligence gleaming in his eyes that his stupidity-ridden exterior belied. He glanced up at the others, settling in beside the fire, turning his eyes downward as Shelley, the lady sloth that they'd befriended that day, smiled at him. Beside her lay, though some distance away, the chestnut-furred saber cub, who they knew to be called Axel, laying his head atop his paws, imitating Diego, who lay on the other side of the fire. Manny sat beside the saber. Ellie snuggled next to him, her trunk interlocked with his. Only their daughter Peaches was conspicuously absent. Sid half smiled as he glanced over at the new tiger in their midst, remembering that Peaches wasn't here with their herd that night, because she had been sent to bed as grounding for her brashness towards the cub earlier. He sat down beside the flame, just as Diego rose to his feet, lopping past the others to the mouth of the cave. I wonder where Diego was going. Stopping short at the entrance, Diego raised his head to the stars as the tendril of a memory placed havoc within his mind. He gazed up at the stars, noticing them outlines of those he remembered, with joy mingled with pain. Letting out a sigh, he glanced back into the cave, watching the cub Axel bat at Shelley playfully to tease her, causing the female to scoot away from him as if she was afraid. Melting back into the shadows, Diego swiveled his gaze around the perimeter of their camp rapidly, scanning for any intruders. Footsteps sounded behind him, but the tiger was so absorbed in his guard duties that he didn't hear them until the last minute. "Hey buddy, what's up?" Manny's voice said. The tiger pivoted, every hair on his body standing straight up with surprise. Manny, Diego replied, avoiding his friend's intense stare. "Don't scare me like that." "Sorry," Manny rumbled. "I was just wondering what you were thinking." The tiger attempted to repress a sigh, but then gave in and let it out. He directed his gaze back over at the cub once more, his eyebrows creased in thought. "Well?" the mammoth prompted. "If Elder Titan finds out we took in another saber, he'll tell the council, revoke your nomination, and have my hide," Diego confessed in a rush, hurrying over the words. Manny scowled at the mention of the Regent Elder, and then glanced down at his friend. Once again he was struck by how vulnerable the tiger was as he recalled their appearance before the Mammoth Council. "Once I become Regent Elder, I swear I'll change that." Attempting to cheer Diego up, he punched him lightly in the shoulder, saying, "Don't worry, Diego. Titan will never have to find out what we've done. I know you want to take care of Axel. And to be honest, I think the little guy needs us." Diego's eyes were a glassy yellow, a sign that he was deep in thought. Finally he spoke up. "Yeah, he does. We should probably head back to the others now, Manny." The two returned to the campfire, once again taking their places beside the warmth offered to them. Shelley, the tan-colored she-sloth, glanced up at them from her work of plying some grasses into a workable item for carrying things in. When Sid had asked her out of curiosity what it was, she replied that it was something she'd seen the human females doing, that she wanted to make one herself, something that greatly surprised the others. Now she glanced up at the mammoth and the saber, sitting near each other beside the fire's light, a question lingering in her eyes as her gaze traveled up and down Manny, admiration gleaming in her eyes. "Manny, Thur," she began humbly, "my friend Axel and I have both heard telleth of your herdeth exploits, but anyway, I'm greatly curious about learning your path before us. Can you tell us?" The mammoth bull smiled in response. "Meaning mine and Diego's?" When she nodded in response, Manny glanced over as the tiger to see his reflection. Diego shrugged. "Fine by me," he replied laconically. He nodded his head at his friend's differential. "You can start, Manny." "Thanks, Diego." Manny grinned at the tiger. "Anyway, my story begins with my herd's migration and entrance into this very valley. It was spring in this valley, and the snow had melted away, revealing a land of austere beauty hidden beneath the ice. The forests budded again as the deciduous trees, such as oaks, maples, and poplars, gradually began the transformation from a skeleton to a fully fledged tree, filled with leaves alongside the evergreen trees, such as firs, cedars, and pines, reached higher into the sky. They flourished under the welcoming heat of the formerly reclusive sun, as wildflowers popped up in scores, carpeting the steps with dots of bright light amidst the dark green of the grass fronds, reparting rich loamy earth and the gloriously blue sky. Although the last vestiges of ice had vanished, there were several regions within the landscape of the dale that the snow and ice insisted on refusing to secede. And one such area was the massive river valley of the long, immense glacier that sliced its way down the mountains that opened the basin to all incoming and outgoing in the habit of migration. And all the creatures that specifically valley referred to it as the Brede Pass. Everywhere in the valley, a peaceful serenity reigned, a peacefulness that was abruptly dispelled by the commotion stirred up by the entrance of a large mammoth herd into the vale. "Ah," the patriarch of the herd thought to himself. His gaze swept over the verdant, rolling grasses of the dell. "What a beautiful place for us to settle in, perhaps." He stopped short of a rise that led into the valley. His mammoths halted behind him. Over his shoulder, he heard gasps of pleasure and excitement as the cows and other males in his herd eyed the lowland with keen fervor. He felt rather than saw his mate stroll up next to him, her light brown coat brushing against his own. Turning his head, he linked his trunk with hers protectively, casting a concerned glance downward at her swollen belly as he exulted. "Would you look at this place, Millie? I know we're here only to see the Regent Elder of all the dioceses be installed in place, but this place is so magnificent, I think we should consider settling here." Certainly is lovely, Millie agreed, smiling at him as he guided her down deeper into the hollow, the others in their group trailing after slowly at first. Once they saw their leader set foot in the glade, the cows and their calves went wild with excitement. Though it isn't the usual place for a Regent's installment, since I've seen that happen at Seven Oaks. Not here in the Three Fjords. I guess my godfather wanted a change of pace for the way things have been done. One calf broke loose of his dam, trumpeting happily as he darted away from the grasses, as his mother snorted, beginning to follow after him, despite her dissonant abdomen. Clovis glanced up, noticing her distress and seeing that her mate was the rear guard, marshalling the stragglers into order as the pandemonium erupted as the mammoth herd emerged into the breedlands that caused the definite response from those already in the valley. He cast a loving look at his mate, withdrawing his trunk from hers with regret as he whispered, "Wait here, my darling, as I go wrangle up Heloise, Young's rapscallion. She needs the help with that one." He finished with a playful wink at Millie, who smiled at him, then drew back, unconsciously placing her trunk on her side as if it gave her pain. Clovis lumbered in the direction of the unruly calf, scooping him up with his trunk as several beasts, a beaver, a tapir, and a sloth, peered out from the bushes. The sloth parted the tall, thin grasses that concealed them, murmuring to his friends in a tone filled with animation, "Look, guys, the mammoths are here. Let's go tell the others." Hearing the whisper, the mammoth swiveled his head around Heloise's calf, still dangling from his trunk, making the young one laugh out loud as the arrow flew past him as Clovis did, so eager to pinpoint the voice. A giggle sounded from behind the bushes, and the half-grown beaver and its friends emerged, gazing as shyly as Clovis. The sloth had his claws clasped behind his back diffidently, his eyes shining with admiration. Having seen their fill of the leader, known as the tribe of mammoths, as elders, they darted off, eager to spread the word that more mammoths had appeared in the Breedlands local. Clovis allowed himself a private grin as he marched over the milling crowd of his herd, noticing that his second command, Abelard, mate of Heloise, had moved to the forefront while he was gone. Realizing that his leader had returned with his son, Abelard left his duties as supervising the excited calves and cows waiting just inside the valley. The little ones stomped their feet on the ground, causing a loud rumble to echo through the forests. Setting the calf down in front of his father, Clovis shared a smile with Abelard as the chocolate-furred bull caught up in his child in his trunk. He then aligned himself beside Clovis to escort him back to where the herd was restlessly waiting, saying, "Thank you, Clovis, my friend, for bringing back Richard for us. He is a trunkful, that's for sure." "Yes, he is," Clovis agreed quietly, his eyes seeking out his mate amongst the other females in the herd, and then he glanced up, meeting her large, soft green eyes as time seemed to slow for them. In that moment, Clovis and Millie were the only two mammoths in that valley. Abelard let out a shout, sending the cows forward into the lush grassland of the basin, their calves tagging along at their sides as Clovis sauntered over to his mate, reaching the tussock of grass she was resting on, her eyes sweeping through every contour, nuance, and aspect of the valley they had come to. Clovis chuckled appreciatively as he stepped up beside her, throwing a playful wink in her direction. Millie laughed in response, hitting him on his side with her trunk mischievously. Millie glanced up from her mate, her gaze sweeping up and down his tight physique, admiring the rich reddish-brown color of his fur, one of the things that first attracted her to him in the first place, and then met his eyes, large and deep and brown. For several minutes they just gazed into each other's eyes again. Wouldn't it be something if our baby had Clovis's eyes? She mused to herself as Clovis arranged himself beside her on their place on the tussock. He swiveled his head forward, making a cursory inspection of the mammoths that were by now dispersing further inland into the meadow. Making one last final circuit around their perimeters, Millie saw him lift his head and turn to her, gently coming alongside so that their coats mingled. Millie let out a sigh as she enjoyed the sensation of his auburn fur against her own, relishing in its softness. His scrutiny of his herd's safety complete, Clovis raised his head, seeking out the forest green eyes of his mate as she glanced around the breedlands once more, letting out another sigh, this time one of utter contentment. "Oh, Clovis," she musinated, laying her head against his shoulders, trusting as the mammoth bull delighted in providing the strength that he lent her. "You're right. This is such a beautiful area. Might just be perfect place for us to stay and raise our calf." "It is indeed," Clovis concurred, taking her trunk in his own as he helped her down from the tussock, descending a hill that led into the deeper recesses of the lowland that was to supply the mammoth herds gathering there for the installation of the regent elder into his office. Enough food and water and sanctuary from predators for as long as they needed before the migration harkened in their bones again. "And as you know, Millie, my darling, that we are here for the most important reason. It isn't every day that a regent elder is elected to that supreme officer. And who knows," he continued with a wink at her, "one day I might be nominated." His mate chuckled, a glint of stubbornness in her eyes as she conceded, "It is a great honor." She paused as if in thought, and then went on, "And one that shouldn't become a burden to any who take it up. An eldership is responsibility, Clovis dear." "Are you thinking of not being nominated yourself?" Clovis teased, fully aware that not only the males were elected to that high office, but the female mammoths of high repute could be honored as well with such a nomination and potential ascension. Millie let out a rich, throaty laugh as Clovis's remark. "No, of course not," she replied, looping her trunk into Clovis's. "I merely want to remind you that any eldership is a responsibility, darling." Yes," Clovis admitted, using his trunk to bring her in closer to him as he nuzzled against her. "And with great power comes that. Responsibility, he continued, winking at her again playfully. This caused his mate to lightheartedly whack him with her trunk before nestling in close to him. Once again, he caught her trunk, intertwining them close together as he looked deeply into her forest green eyes that sparkled only for him, nuzzling her affectionately as she reciprocated by rubbing his head alongside his. Her eyes closed as she inhaled his scent. Enjoying his mate's indulgences, Clovis relaxed. His body slackened in exhaustion over the exertions of the day. Abruptly, his peace was broken as Millie let out a grunt of pain. Clovis gazed into her eyes anxiously. "Millie, what's wrong?" "The calf," Millie gasped, breathing heavily as contractions pounded her. "The calf! Clovis, it's coming!" Supporting his mate with his own body, Clovis shepherded Millie through the milling horde of his mammoths, who had all congregated to the middle of the steep in a confused sort of melee. Abelard noticed that his elder's mate, in distress, bellowed for the cows to part ranks to allow Clovis and Millie access into the forest. Over his shoulder, Clovis shouted to Abelard, "My thanks, brother!" In response, his second-in-command dipped his head respectfully as a small gray bird darted overhead, trailing after the elder and his mate, its eyes bright with interest. Clovis led Millie into a canopy of thickly grown firs, where, to his relief, he noticed a small clearing. Millie sank to the leaf-carpeted ground, with a moan, squeezing her eyes shut in anguish as birth pains lashed into her stomach. Clovis stood protectively at her side, his trunk on hers during the more intense moments of labor, as she pushed and groaned and cried out against the agony seething through her. His mate labored all that day, and into the fringes of twilight before giving birth, just as the sun rose that morning, spreading fingers of light into the recesses of the wood, and one fell upon the dark brown calf, lying amongst the leaves of the thicket. The mammoth bull gazed down at the calf, inwardly trembling with joy as he watched the calf stumble to its feet, blearily open its eyes as he directed his gaze in its direction. Beside him, he instinctively heard Millie's murmur, "Clovis, it's a boy." She rose to her feet, intertwining her trunk with her baby's as he leaned against her. "It's a boy. And oh, Clovis, he has your eyes." The elder allowed himself a private grin as he looked at his mate and his child, noticing with pleasure that his Millie was right. The baby did indeed have his large chocolate eyes. Again, Millie's voice sounded next to his ear. "Clovis, he looks just like you." A smile was evident in her voice, and he raised his head from inspecting the calf to gaze deeply into his mate's face as he stepped closer to her, placing his trunk protectively over her head as Millie used her trunk to scoop up the baby into a warm cushion to sleep in. Clovis laid his head on the nape of his mate's, his trunk gently teasing her light tan crest of hair as he replied, "Let's hope he takes after his mother as much as me. I need your compassion, caring nature to balance my brash, stubborn attitude, and to keep me in check, my dear." Millie chuckled. "True, but he could also use a measure of fortitude and masculinity, and those are your attributes as well, and worthy ones. We'll just have to wait and see as he grows." Overhead, the small, gray bird had overseen everything, its dark eyes brightening. It spread its wings and flew off, knowing that Clovis would appreciate if all the other animals in the nearby area heard the news that his son had come. And now the news would thrill the community, the creatures living in the valley, under the governance of the mammoths. The bird's eyes flashed as it smiled to itself, thinking, after all, it isn't every day a hope of the herd is born in one of the mammoth herds. It continued its flight through the valley, calling out as it passed, all creatures from sloths, gladiolodons, armadillos, and the Przeworski horse. Herds looked up, listening intently to the news. Excited, all the many species found their vantage points, in trees or high hills, to watch the mammoth herd assemble. "I have good tidings. Clovis, son of Alfred's mate, has had a son. Another hope for the herd. You must all go and see him." A mahogany brown imperial mammoth raised his head in response to the call, his face beaming with appreciation of the message. "My thanks, Sonia," he exclaimed, raising his trunk into the air to trumpet the news to his herd. "We shall make our way to see him now." Sonia grinned happily, knowing that she had just spoken to the newly installed regent elder of the mammoths, Augustine. And it was such a great honor. As she winged toward the farthest east corner of the valley, spreading the news, the animals who had received her message began to gravitate towards the thicket, heading that way in groups of 2 and 3, the mammoths at the forefront. Reaching the thicket, the larger ones craned their heads inside to catch a glimpse of the calf, a few even lifting their young ones past the firs so they could see Millie's baby, while the smaller creatures crept under the large feet of the mammoths, standing diffidently at the edge of the thicket, their eyes wide with interest. The small, dark brown calf glanced around the array of faces before him, sloth, mammoth, bird, and horse, his eyes big with excitement and bewilderment as he crawled up next to his mother, trying to conceal himself from the inquisitive gazes of the other creatures, as she chuckled appreciatively, enjoying the attention that the other species were bestowing on her son, since a hope of the herd was special. One young beaver stepped forward, inspecting the baby from all angles. The beaver smiled as the little mammoth yawned, snuggling up against his mother. The kit looked up at Millie and Clovis, a question in its eyes. "What you gonna call him?" Millie smiled expansively at the little one. "Manfred," she replied simply, and a murmur of pleasure went around the circle gathered around the thicket. "Manfred," repeated the kit with a grin, speaking for everyone. "I like it." Hearing his name called sharply, the tiny beaver scurried off, his broad tail thumping the ground. Clovis and Millie glanced into each other's eyes, smiling at one another, as they found their trunks linking an expression of love as they gazed down at diminutive, snoozing Manfred. The fire crackled abruptly, amidst the silence wrapped around the listeners, as Manny finished his beginning of his tale. Then Ellie spoke up. "Aw, Manny, you must have been so cute as a calf." Shelley's dark eyes glinted in the fiery red glow reflected by the flames as she murmured, It's though wonderful how you could have had such a wonderful parents, such as Clovis and Millie, sir." The mammoth bull stared into the fire, glimpsing for a moment the shades of his past before he briskly averted his gaze, raising his head so he could oversee everyone. "Well, if you ask me, your parents were too lovey-dovey, Manny, old pal," Sid protested as he removed the tan-colored she-sloth's hand from her work, causing her to look into his blue eyes. Having caught her attention, Sid bent close to her so their faces were almost touching, but the moment was shattered by Diego's statement. "Congratulations, Sid. You now earn points in the lovey-dovey department you just accused Manny's parents of." Embarrassed, Sid withdrew to his side of the campfire, casting wistful gazes at Shelley as she returned them shyly. From his place beside the fire, The saber noticed that out of the corner of his eye, the cub Axel has placed his head on top of his crossed forelegs, his face hidden from view. He glanced up, his gaze meeting Diego's. "I never had parents like that," he mouthed, before disappearing under his forelegs again, leaving Diego feeling slightly baffled. Shelley smiled at him after making more eyes at Sid, which simultaneously caused the mammoth and the saber to share a glance of genuine astonishment at Sid's good fortune at meeting up with this she-sloth. Crash and Eddie, bored with sitting around doing nothing but listening to Manny tell a story, slid up behind the tuft of their sister's hair, grabbing their pea shooters. Peering out of either side of Ellie's large forehead, they sighted their targets, Sid and Shelley. Crash winked at Eddie, and they blew into their pea shooters, and at once caused Shelley to drop her work. Sid to accidentally step up beside the fire, singeing his tail, again, and Axel to raise his head, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth as he watched the pandemonium erupt into the silent cave. "Quiet!" Manny hissed, grabbing hold of the possums in his trunk. He gave Crash to Ellie to hold while he himself took Eddie. "Peaches is asleep, and I won't have you ruffians waking her up." "Right," Shelley agreed, picking up scattered grass threads, "and besides, it's Diego's turn to tell his story." "Oh, all right," Diego conceded. "Here goes. But let me warn you, my story is intense, and while it might be hard for you herbivores to hear it." "Just tell it, Diego," Manny encouraged, smiling at him affectionately. "Don't worry, we won't let her bother us." "Thanks, Manny," Diego replied. "Anyway, my story begins with my father's raid on a nearby pack." The amber-colored saber crept along the ground, glancing behind him to make sure his trusted group of lieutenants was treading along on his paw steps. He stopped short, inhaling the pungent smells of a largely female-dominant pride only 2 miles away. A thrill scurried down his spine as he contemplated the judiciousness of this raid. There were only 2 ancient leaders of the pack, and their offspring, bearing 2 males. The majority was female, which is just as we need at the moment, Cortez musinated to himself as a thickly built elder drew up alongside him. Cortez's eyes narrowed with anger as he stared at the elder, who responded by shooting him a glare. The alpha snarled. Brutus had spoken against the raid originally, and yet it seemed he deemed it appropriate to be included despite that. "Steady now," the elder whispered as he trailed the alpha into the long tan grasses, making Cortez roll his eyes briefly with disdain, then shrank back as they heard paw steps coming closer. No doubt one of the brothers of the females in the pack of control. Brothers of the females in the pack on patrol. Cortez's eyes gleamed with fiendish delight as he advanced carefully, every muscle tensed in preparation to pounce on the male on guard. He stepped closer, moving his paws around a stick lying nearby silently as Brutus took up his position at the rear, murmuring instructions to each other. The alpha turned his gaze forward, noting the male saber on watch had halted, his neck raised as he was sniffing the air for signs of invaders. Cortez smirked. "Now!" he shouted, bursting out of his cover of the grasses, lopping straight towards the guard. Raising his right paw into the air, he slashed it down the side of the saber on watch, causing him to bite his back teeth against the pane as the rest of the pack streamed past him, letting out joyous roars as they joined their leader in disabling the barrier. "We have come," Cortez announced in a loud roar to the pack, knowing full well they were concealed in a small hollow nearby, as he removed himself gracefully from the limp, sodden body of their guard. He let out a warning growl to his pack as they hurried deep into the depression. "And I'll have you remember that the prettiest of all the ladies belongs to me." This was Cruel Intentions, Lacrimosa, Chapter 1, Origins, Part 1, by Lunar Blue 21, an Ice Age fanfiction. That was good. I've not watched Ice Age in a very, very long time. I don't think I actually seen the most recent one. Yeah. And that, let's see. That actually is probably going to be where I end for the night. That was my last one. I do have a small video before I roll the end credit and slate. But thank you all for joining me. And thank you for submitting stories. Honestly didn't know what to expect from this fanfic. Yeah, it's always a little weird when you read ones that are mostly animals. It's always weird. It's always like, where is this gonna go? But I had almost, you know, it's weird. Like, I hadn't really thought about Ice Age in forever. So hearing about it again, I was like, whoa, that's new. Because it can always go weird. Go sideways real fast. But yeah, thank you, Cosmic, for joining in. I appreciate it. Thank you for, you know, not just tuning in, but thank you for creating an account to watch. Really, that means a lot. See, I think that's actually where I'm gonna end it for the day. Remember that on Monday, that we'll be doing some more. We'll be doing some D&D on Monday. So take a look at this short roll that I have, and then we will be back on Monday, and then we'll go ahead and end the stream there. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out and watching the stream and for submitting stuff. And I hope that I'll see you all on Monday or next Friday, depending upon what your prerogative is, or Wednesday. I'll be streaming on possibly on Wednesday. So until then, I hope that you all have a wonderful evening and a good weekend. So peace.